What happens when destiny is bound in silence, buried beneath shame, and forced to bow before those who were never meant to rule? For Lyra Ashwood, life had always been small. An Omega in the Nightshade pack meant invisibility at best, cruelty at worst. She'd learned to keep her eyes down, her voice soft, her presence like morning mist, there but barely noticed. For 23 years, she'd survived on the margins of pack life, serving at banquets, cleaning the alpha quarters, enduring the casual disdain that came with being born at the bottom of the hierarchy. Her parents, both Omegas themselves, had taught her one lesson above all: accept your place, and you might live long enough to find small moments of peace. But when Alpha King Theron Blackwood stood before the entire pack during the lunar crowning ceremony and rejected her as his fated mate, not in private, not with mercy, but with calculated cruelty designed to break her before hundreds of witnesses, everything changed. And what happens next, no one was prepared for. Not the pack that cheered her humiliation. Not the Alpha King who sealed his own fate with that rejection. And certainly not the ancient guardians who had been waiting centuries for this exact moment. The ceremony had been perfect until Theron's eyes locked onto hers. Lyra had felt it the moment he'd stepped into the great hall, the bond snapping into place like a golden thread pulled taut between their souls. The scent of him hit her first: forest loam and dying embers, ozone before a storm, cold steel freshly forged. It was overwhelming, intoxicating, terrifying. Her wolf, usually silent and small within her, had surged with sudden recognition. Mate. She'd tried to make herself smaller, to hide behind the other servers as they carried trays of blood wine and roasted venison. But a mate bond couldn't be hidden, not from the one who shared it. Theron had stopped mid-speech, his coronation address forgotten, his nostrils flaring as he scented the air. The hall fell silent. 2,000 pack members watched as the newly crowned Alpha King tracked the scent across the room, his powerful frame moving with predatory grace, until he stood directly before her. Lyra's hands trembled, nearly dropping the silver tray she carried. Up close, he was magnificent, 6.5 feet of pure alpha dominance, with dark hair that fell to his shoulders and eyes like molten amber. "You," he'd said, and the single word carried the weight of destiny. For one heartbeat, Lyra had dared to hope. Fated mates were sacred, blessed by the moon goddess herself. Surely he would. "You are my fated mate," Theron announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. Then his expression hardened into something cruel. "And I, Theron Blackwood, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, reject you, Lyra Ashwood, as my mate and future queen." The words hit her like physical blows. The golden thread between them turned to acid in her veins. "The Nightshade pack deserves a queen of strength, of breeding, of power," Theron continued, playing to his audience now. "Not some Omega servant who smells of lavender and weakness. Not some wolfless runt who would shame this pack before all others." Wolfless. The word was a lie. She had a wolf, small and quiet though it was, but the accusation stuck like tar. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some pitying, most approving. Beside Theron, Celeste Ravenna smiled. Beautiful, cruel Celeste, the pack's lead enforcer, who'd made Lyra's life miserable for years. Her scent, cinnamon and iron and fresh blood, seemed to thicken with satisfaction. She stepped forward, her hand possessively claiming Theron's arm. "My king is wise," Celeste purred. "The moon goddess makes mistakes. Not all bonds are meant to be honored." The rejection ceremony required acceptance. Lyra's wolf howled in agony within her, but she forced the words out through numb lips. I accept your rejection." The bond severed. It felt like her chest was being ripped open, like every nerve in her body was being set aflame. Lyra collapsed, the silver tray clattering to the marble floor. Pain, white-hot, absolute, consumed her. She was dimly aware of gasping, of her body convulsing, of warm blood trickling from her nose. "Pathetic," someone muttered. "Take her outside," Theron ordered, already turning away. "This ceremony has been disrupted enough. Cast her beyond pack borders before moonrise. She is no longer Nightshade." Guards hauled Lyra to her feet. Her legs wouldn't support her weight. They dragged her through the hall, past faces that ranged from disgusted to indifferent. Not one voice rose in her defense. She caught sight of her parents near the back, her mother looked away, her father stared at his feet. They threw her out the northern gates just as the first snow began to fall. "You have until the gates close," the head guard said, not unkindly. "After that, you're rogue. Fair game for any pack to kill." The iron gate slammed shut with a finality that echoed across the frozen landscape. Lyra lay in the snow, her body still racked with pain from the severed bond, and watched the Nightshade territory lights grow distant through the gathering blizzard. She tried to stand, managed to get to her knees, then collapsed again. The cold bit through her thin servant's dress. She hadn't been given a coat, supplies, or even shoes suitable for winter. The message was clear, she wasn't expected to survive the night. She crawled. Pride was a luxury she couldn't afford, so she crawled through deepening snow, following tree line toward anything that might offer shelter. Her fingers went numb. Her lips turned blue. The wind howled like wolves, mocking her, reminding her that she would never run with a pack again. An hour. Maybe 2. Time became meaningless as hypothermia set in. Lyra's thoughts grew sluggish, confused. She saw lights that weren't there, heard voices in the wind. When she finally spotted the dark shape of an abandoned barn, half collapsed and forgotten at the edge of what had once been farmland, it took everything she had left to reach it. Inside, it was marginally warmer. Old hay, rotten wood, holes in the roof letting snow sift through. Lyra pulled moldy blankets from what might have been a horse stall and wrapped herself in them, shaking so violently her teeth chattered. This was how she would die. Alone, rejected, frozen in a ruin that no one would ever check. The thought brought a strange calm. At least it would be over. The pain, the shame, the endless years of being less than. Her wolf had gone silent, maybe it had died when the bond severed. Maybe that mercy, at least, had been granted. "I'm sorry," Lyra whispered to the darkness, to the mother she'd never been good enough for, to the life she'd never gotten to live. "I'm so sorry." Her eyes closed. The cold faded. Everything faded. Warmth. That was the first thing that penetrated the dark. Not the brutal warmth of fever, but something gentle, surrounding her. Breathing. She heard breathing that wasn't her own. Lyra's eyes fluttered open. The barn was dark, the storm still raging outside, but she was surrounded by wolves. Massive wolves, far larger than any pack wolf she'd ever seen. They were pressed against her on all sides, their body heat creating a cocoon of warmth, their breathing synchronized and steady. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt safe. Lyra counted them in the dim moonlight filtering through the broken roof. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 10. 10 wolves, each the size of a small horse, their fur ranging from silver to black to deep russet. They weren't sleeping, their eyes were open, alert, watching the darkness beyond the barn with the intensity of trained guards. "You're protecting me," Lyra whispered, her voice hoarse. The largest wolf, positioned directly in front of her, turned its massive head. Its eyes were startling, pale silver, almost white, with an intelligence that was more than animal. Those eyes held her gaze for a long moment, and Lyra felt something stir within her chest. Not the mate bond, that was gone, leaving only scar tissue. This was something else. Something older. Recognition. The wolf's form began to shift. Lyra watched, transfixed, as bones reformed, as fur receded, as the massive creature became a man. The transformation was seamless, beautiful, like watching water change to mist. When it was complete, a man knelt before her, tall, broad-shouldered, with silver-white hair despite appearing no older than 40. His eyes remained that impossible pale silver. Scars covered his chest and arms, each one telling a story of survival. His scent washed over her, aged oak and winter snow, pine forests and distant storms. "You're alive," he said, and his voice carried relief so profound it made Lyra's throat tight. "Thank the moon. We thought we were too late." "Who are you?" Lyra managed. "My name is Cale Stormborn. I am commander of the Silver Watch, the ancient guard sworn to serve the matriarch." He gestured to the wolves surrounding them. "And we, Lyra Ashwood, have been waiting for you for 300 years. The name, matriarch, resonated through her like a bell. Lyra's small, silent wolf suddenly stirred, raising its head within her mind for the first time since the rejection. Not weak. Not small. Just bound. "I don't understand," Lyra said. "I'm nobody. An Omega. Rejected and exiled. How could you possibly?" "You were bound," Cale interrupted gently. "Your power was sealed when you were an infant. We've searched for decades, following prophecy and rumor, tracking bloodlines and signs. Tonight, when the bond was severed." He reached out slowly, as if afraid she might bolt, and placed his palm over her heart. The binding shattered. "We felt it like a shockwave across the territories. Your wolf is awakening, Lyra. And once she fully rises, nothing in this world will be the same." The other wolves had begun shifting too, forming a circle of powerful, scarred warriors around her. 9 men and women, each bearing the same silver eyes, each wearing expressions of reverence and relief. The prophecy, a woman with copper-red hair said softly, kneeling beside Cale. "When the bond of cruelty breaks / when winter's mercy sheathes her in white / the matriarch will wake / born of ash, crowned in starlight. She will be fierce yet merciful / powerful yet kind / she will come when her people need her most / when the packs have forgotten what strength truly means." The words washed over Lyra, familiar somehow, like a lullaby half remembered from childhood. Her mother used to hum something like this when she thought no one was listening. Old songs. Ancient rhymes. The kind nursemaid sang to scare children into behaving. Why? Lyra asked, her voice breaking. Why was I bound? Who would do that to an infant? Kale's expression turned grave. We don't know all the details. But we suspect, your parents. They would have been afraid of what you would become. An Omega child exhibiting signs of immense power would have drawn attention, the dangerous kind. They likely found someone to bind your wolf, to keep you safe by keeping you small. His jaw tightened. They meant well, perhaps. But they stole your birthright. Rage, bright and sudden, flared in Lyra's chest. Then, just as quickly, it was followed by a wave of grief. Her parents had known. All those years of teaching her to accept her place, to be invisible, to survive by becoming nothing, they'd known she was meant for more. What happens now? Lyra whispered. Now, Kale said, standing and offering her his hand, you learn what you really are. You meet your wolf for the first time, not the muted echo you've lived with, but her true self. And then... A fierce smile crossed his scarred face. Then you decide what justice looks like for those who wronged you. Lyra took his hand. It was warm, calloused, steady. When he pulled her to her feet, she expected her legs to buckle, expected the weakness that had defined her entire existence. Instead, she felt steady. Strong. Inside her mind, her wolf was pacing now, growing with each heartbeat. No longer a cowering creature the size of a pup. Something vast was unfolding within her, like wings stretching after years of being bound. Hello, a voice said in her mind, her own voice, but wilder, ancient, powerful beyond measure. I am awake. Finally, I am awake. And we have much to reclaim. They took her deeper into the wilderness, to a place where reality felt thin, where the moonlight seemed brighter and the air tasted of magic. The Silverwatch moved like shadows, their training evident in every silent step. They brought her to a clearing where standing stones formed a perfect circle, each carved with symbols that glowed faintly silver. This is a sacred site, Kale explained, his hand remaining steady on her lower back, guiding her to the center of the circle. When you shift for the first time, truly shift, it can be overwhelming. The stones will help contain your power, channel it, keep you from burning yourself out. Lyra looked at the 10 warriors surrounding the circle. You're all not normal wolves, are you? A dark-skinned man with braided hair grinned. Normal? Sister, we're dire wolves. The old breed. We don't just shift, we transform into something that hasn't walked these lands in centuries. Bigger, stronger, damn near immortal. He tapped his chest. Name's Rowan. That gorgeous woman who quoted prophecy at you is Ira. The brooding one is Thane. The twins are Ash and Ember. We can introduce ourselves after, Ira cut in gently. Right now, Lyra needs to focus. Close your eyes, Kale instructed, his voice dropping to that commanding tone that demanded obedience. Reach inside yourself. Find your wolf. She's there, I promise you. She's been waiting for this moment. Lyra closed her eyes. It was easy to find her wolf now, the presence was enormous, filling her consciousness like a second heartbeat. She felt her wolf's frustration, her rage at being caged for so long, but also her fierce love, her protectiveness, her determination to never let Lyra be hurt again. We are one, her wolf said. Not human with a wolf inside. Not wolf with a human face. We are both, fully, completely. Let me show you. The transformation began. It didn't hurt. That was the first surprise. Instead of bones snapping, they flowed like water finding a new course. Instead of pain, there was power, a rush of energy that made Lyra gasp. Her body was changing, expanding, reforming. She felt her spine lengthen, her limbs reshape, her senses explode into incredible clarity. Fur emerged, not with the prickling discomfort she'd expected, but like putting on a coat that fit perfectly. Silver white, like moonlight on snow, each hair seeming to glow from within. Her size increased dramatically, she was massive, far larger than Theron in his alpha form, larger even than Kale's dire wolf shape. Energy erupted from her, a wave of pure power that made the standing stones flare bright, that sent ripples through the clearing, that made all 10 Silverwatch members drop to one knee in automatic reverence. When Lyra opened her eyes, the world was different. Colors were more vibrant. Scents were layered stories she could read like books. She could hear heartbeats from 100 yards away, could sense the life force of every creature in the forest. And she was massive. Her shoulders came up to Kale's chest, and he was a dire wolf, already larger than any alpha. Her fur gleamed like starlight, her paws left glowing prints in the earth. When she looked down at her reflection in a small pool of water, she saw eyes that burned with an inner light, not just one color, but shifting between silver and gold and pale violet. She opened her mouth and howled. The sound shook the forest. Birds exploded from trees. Small animals fled. And somewhere distant, she heard other wolves responding, their howls carrying confusion and fear at this new, overwhelming presence. She is the matriarch, Ira whispered, her voice filled with awe. The prophecy is fulfilled. The old power has returned. Lyra shifted back to human form. It was instinctive now, easy as breathing. When she stood naked in the center of the stone circle, power still crackling around her like visible lightning, the silver watch didn't look away. They were staring at her with something like worship. Your true form, Kale said, his voice rough with emotion. He stepped forward, placing a heavy cloak around her shoulders. You're magnificent. Exactly as the old texts described. I don't feel like myself, Lyra admitted, then corrected, no. I feel like myself for the first time. Does that make sense? Fierce smile crossed his scarred face. Then you decide what justice looks like for those who wronged you. Lyra took his hand. It was warm, calloused, steady. When he pulled her to her feet, she expected her legs to buckle, expected the weakness that had defined her entire existence. Instead, she felt steady. Strong. Inside her mind, her wolf was pacing now, growing with each heartbeat. No longer a cowering creature the size of a pup. Something vast was unfolding within her, like wings stretching after years of being bound. Hello, a voice said in her mind, her own voice, but wilder, ancient, powerful beyond measure. I am awake. Finally, I am awake. And we have much to reclaim. They took her deeper into the wilderness, to a place where reality felt thin, where the moonlight seemed brighter and the air tasted of magic. The silver watch moved like shadows, their training evident in every silent step. They brought her to a clearing where standing stones formed a perfect circle, each carved with symbols that glowed faintly silver. This is a sacred site, Kale explained, his hand remaining steady on her lower back, guiding her to the center of the circle. When you shift for the first time, truly shift, it can be overwhelming. The stones will help contain your power, channel it, keep you from burning yourself out. Lyra looked at the 10 warriors surrounding the circle. You're all not normal wolves, are you? A dark-skinned man with braided hair grinned. Normal? Sister, we're dire wolves. The old breed. We don't just shift, we transform into something that hasn't walked these lands in centuries. Bigger, stronger, damn near immortal. He tapped his chest. Name's Rowan. That gorgeous woman who quoted prophecy at you is Ira. The brooding one is Thane. The twins are Ash and Ember. We can introduce ourselves after, Ira cut in gently. Right now, Lyra needs to focus. Close your eyes, Kale instructed, his voice dropping to that commanding tone that demanded obedience. Reach inside yourself. Find your wolf. She's there, I promise you. She's been waiting for this moment. Lyra closed her eyes. It was easy to find her wolf now, the presence was enormous, filling her consciousness like a second heartbeat. She felt her wolf's frustration, her rage at being caged for so long, but also her fierce love, her protectiveness, her determination to never let Lyra be hurt again. Perfect sense. Ira approached, offering a leather bag. Clothes. We brought options since we didn't know your size. A wry smile. Though I don't think any of us predicted you'd be quite this powerful quite this fast. As Lyra dressed, practical leathers and warm furs that fit surprisingly well, her mind was racing. Power was one thing. But what was she supposed to do with it? Where did she belong now? You mentioned my parents knew, Lyra said, tying her hair back. That they bound my wolf to protect me. Who did the binding? Who had that kind of power? Kale's expression darkened. A witch named Moira Blackthorn. She specialized in suppression magic, hiding supernatural children from those who would exploit them. She died 15 years ago, taking most of her secrets with her. But before she passed, she left records. We found them last year. That's how we knew to search the Nightshade Pact territory. She bound dozens of children, Rowan added, anger sharp in his voice. Some to protect them, some, he shook his head. Some because families paid her to hide embarrassing offspring. Powerful children born to weak families, or omegas born to alpha lineages. Moira didn't discriminate in her business. But she left clues. Thane spoke for the first time, his voice deep as distant thunder. Instructions on how the bindings could be broken. For most, it required complex ritual. For you, he gestured to Lyra. The severing of a fated mate bond. She knew that would generate enough trauma, enough raw emotion, to shatter even her strongest magic. Lyra's breath caught. She planned for this? For me to be rejected? Not specifically, Ira said gently. But she knew that someone bound as tightly as you were would need catastrophic emotional rupture to break free. A mate rejection, it's one of the most traumatic events a wolf can experience. Theron's cruelty freed you, Kale said. He made a mistake. He didn't just reject you. He gave you everything you were meant to be. The irony was almost too perfect. Lyra would have laughed if her chest didn't still ache with phantom bond pain. What now? She asked. I'm powerful. Fine. I'm this matriarch thing. But I don't have a pack. I don't have a territory. The Nightshade Pack wants nothing to do with me, and her voice cracked. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all of this. Now, Kale said, stepping close enough that his warmth surrounded her, his scent of oak and winter storm making her feel inexplicably safe. You train. You learn to control your power. You meet your guard, properly meet them, learn their stories, let them learn yours. And then? His pale eyes held hers. Then you decide what kind of leader you want to be. The Silver Watch follows you by prophecy, by ancient oath. We're yours, Lyra. Not because you command it, but because we choose it. Because we've been waiting for you. All of you? Lyra looked around the circle of warriors. You've all just been waiting? For me. Ash and Ember, the twins, one dark-haired, one blonde, spoke in unison. For 3 centuries, the Silver Watch has passed down the prophecy. Each generation has trained, has prepared, has watched for signs. We are the 10th generation. And we found you. We don't serve blind destiny, a woman with midnight black hair and sharp features said. I'm Nyx, by the way. And I need you to understand, we're not serving you because some dusty prophecy says to. We serve you because the kind of power you carry? In the wrong hands, it would be devastating. In the right hands. She smiled. It could change everything. Could bring justice to the oppressed. Could remind the arrogant alphas that strength isn't just about physical dominance. We serve you, Rowan added, because the moment Kale felt your power wake, the moment we saw you in that barn, barely alive, still fighting, we knew. You're not cruel. You're not ambitious for ambition's sake. You're someone who's suffered, who understands what it means to be powerless. That's exactly who should wield this kind of strength. Lyra felt tears prick her eyes. She'd spent her entire life invisible, worthless. And now these incredible warriors, these dire wolves who could tear apart armies, were pledging themselves to her not out of obligation, but choice. I don't want revenge, she said quietly. I want things to be fair. I want Omegas to be protected, not abused. I want strength to mean protecting others, not dominating them. Then that's what we'll build, Kale said simply. Together. He held out his hand. Not commanding this time. Offering. Lyra took it, and felt the rightness of it settle into her bones. Okay, she said. Teach me. Days turned to weeks. The Silver Watch had established a base deep in the neutral territories, land claimed by no pack, dangerous and wild. They'd built a compound that was part training ground, part sanctuary. Each day, Lyra woke before dawn to train, to learn, to push her limits and discover new ones. Kale was her primary instructor, teaching her control over her transformation, how to shift partially or fully, how to command her enhanced senses rather than be overwhelmed by them. He was patient but demanding, never letting her settle for good enough. Again, he'd say, as Lyra practiced holding her partial shift, human form but with claws extended, fangs dropped, eyes glowing. You need to be able to shift parts of yourself in combat. Full transformation is powerful, but it's not always practical. Ira taught her about empathic abilities, how to read the emotions of other wolves through scent and subtle body language, how to project calm or command through presence alone. You're naturally empathic, Ira explained during one session. Most powerful wolves are. But you can refine it, weaponize it when necessary. Lyra discovered she could heal. Not just herself, that was standard for any shifter, but others. When Rowan injured himself during a training exercise, tearing muscles in his shoulder, Lyra had placed her hand on the wound and felt power flow through her. The injury had closed, the damage reversing, leaving Rowan stunned and grateful. That's rare, Nyx had said, watching with interest. Healing abilities usually only manifest in dedicated pack healers. For you to have it on top of your combat power, the moon goddess really didn't do things by half measures with you. The guard members each had distinct personalities that Lyra came to cherish. Rowan was the jokester, always ready with a quip to lighten tension. But in combat, he was ruthless, his fighting style all speed and precision. Ira was the strategist, quiet and thoughtful, but her insights were always valuable. She became Lyra's confidant for the harder emotional moments. Thane rarely spoke, but when he did, everyone listened. His combat style was pure power, devastating strikes that could break stone. Nyx was sharp-tongued and brilliant, specializing in stealth and reconnaissance. She taught Lyra how to move silently, how to become a shadow. The twins, Ash and Ember, finished each other's sentences and fought like a single organism. They were the youngest of the guard, but their teamwork was unmatched. Then there were Cade, Marcus, Sarah, and Finn, each skilled, each loyal, each adding their unique strengths to the collective. And Kale. Kale who trained beside her, who pushed her, who caught her when she stumbled. Kale, whose scent of oak and storm had become home. Lyra felt something growing between them, not the instant, overwhelming bond she'd felt with Theron, but something deeper. Chosen. Earned. One night, after a particularly brutal training session, Kale found her sitting alone on the compound's walls, staring at the stars. Kale was her primary instructor, teaching her control over her transformation, how to shift partially or fully, how to command her enhanced senses rather than be overwhelmed by them. He was patient but demanding, never letting her settle for good enough. Again, he'd say, as Lyra practiced holding her partial shift, human form but with claws extended, fangs dropped, eyes glowing. You need to be able to shift parts of yourself in combat. Full transformation is powerful, but it's not always practical. Ira taught her about empathic abilities, how to read the emotions of other wolves through scent and subtle body language, how to project calm or command through presence alone. You're naturally empathic, Ira explained during one session. Most powerful wolves are. But you can refine it, weaponize it when necessary. Lyra discovered she could heal. Not just herself, that was standard for any shifter, but others. When Rowan injured himself during a training exercise, tearing muscles in his shoulder, Lyra had placed her hand on the wound and felt power flow through her. The injury had closed, the damage reversing, leaving Rowan stunned and grateful. That's rare, Nyx had said, watching with interest. Healing abilities usually only manifest in dedicated pack healers. For you to have it on top of your combat power, the moon goddess really didn't do things by half measures with you. The guard members each had distinct personalities that Lyra came to cherish. Rowan was the jokester, always ready with a quip to lighten tension. But in combat, he was ruthless, his fighting style all speed and precision. Ira was the strategist, quiet and thoughtful, but her insights were always valuable. She became Lyra's confidant for the harder emotional moments. Thane rarely spoke, but when he did, everyone listened. His combat style was pure power, devastating strikes that could break stone. Nyx was sharp-tongued and brilliant, specializing in stealth and reconnaissance. She taught Lyra how to move silently, how to become a shadow. The twins, Asha and Ember, finished each other's sentences and fought like a single organism. They were the youngest of the guard, but their teamwork was unmatched. Then there were Cade, Marcus, Sarah, and Finn, each skilled, each loyal, each adding their unique strengths to the collective. And Kale. Kale, who trained beside her, who pushed her, who caught her when she stumbled. Kale, whose scent of oak and storm had become home. Lyra felt something growing between them, not the instant, overwhelming bond she'd felt with Theron, but something deeper. Chosen. Earned. One night, after a particularly brutal training session, Kale found her sitting alone on the compound's walls, staring at the stars. Connor. He swallowed hard. I'm just a tracker. I was doing border patrol, and I picked up an unusual scent signature, powerful wolves where there shouldn't be any. I was ordered to investigate and report. And now you've seen, Lyra said. What will you report? Connor looked at her, at the 10 massive dire wolves in their human forms surrounding them, at the compound that spoke of permanence and strength. The truth? That the Omega everyone thought was dead is alive and has an army. Not an army, Kale corrected. A guard. There's a difference. Tell me, Connor, Lyra said, crouching to meet the scout's eyes. Does Theron Blackwood still rule the Nightshade Pack? Is Celeste Ravenna still at his side? Yes. They're planning a mating ceremony next month. Making it official. Connor's expression flickered. The pack, not everyone was happy with how things went down. With your rejection. Some of the elders spoke against it, said rejecting a fated mate was courting disaster. But Alpha silenced them. Of course he did. Lyra stood. You're going to return to your pack, Connor. You're going to tell Theron exactly what you saw here. Tell him Lyra Ashwood lives. Tell him she's no longer the Omega he cast out. She felt her power rise, felt her eyes begin to glow. Tell him the matriarch has awakened, and she has questions about his rule. He'll mobilize, Connor warned. He'll see you as a threat. He'll bring warriors. Good, Lyra said. I'm counting on it. They released Connor at dawn, watching him sprint back toward Nightshade territory. Rowan shook his head. We just invited war to our door. No, Ira corrected. Lyra invited judgment. There's a difference. Kale moved to stand beside Lyra, his hand finding her shoulder. Are you ready for this? Once they come, there's no going back. I've been ready, Lyra said. They made me small for 23 years. It's time they see what they created. They came 5 days later. The Nightshade Pack arrived in force, at least 20 wolves, all warriors, all battle-trained. Theron led them in his alpha form, massive and dark as night, with Celeste at his right flank. They stopped at the edge of the neutral territory, unwilling to cross without permission. The boarders are respected at least, Nix muttered, watching from the compound walls. That's something. Connor. He swallowed hard. I'm just a tracker. I was doing border patrol, and I picked up an unusual scent signature, powerful wolves where there shouldn't be any. I was ordered to investigate and report. And now you've seen, Lyra said. What will you report? Connor looked at her, at the 10 massive dire wolves in their human forms surrounding them, at the compound that spoke of permanence and strength. The truth? That the Omega everyone thought was dead is alive and has an army. Not an army, Cale corrected. A guard. There's a difference. Tell me, Connor, Lyra said, crouching to meet the scout's eyes. Does Theron Blackwood still rule the Nightshade Pack? Is Celeste Ravenna still at his side? Yes. They're planning a mating ceremony next month. Making it official. Connor's expression flickered. The pack, not everyone was happy with how things went down. With your rejection. Some of the elders spoke against it, said rejecting a fated mate was courting disaster. But Alpha silenced them. Of course he did. Lyra stood. You're going to return to your pack, Connor. You're going to tell Theron exactly what you saw here. Tell him Lyra Ashwood lives. Tell him she's no longer the Omega he cast out. She felt her power rise, felt her eyes begin to glow. Tell him the matriarch has awakened, and she has questions about his rule. He'll mobilize, Connor warned. He'll see you as a threat. He'll bring warriors. Good, Lyra said. I'm counting on it. They released Connor at dawn, watching him sprint back toward Nightshade territory. Rowan shook his head. We just invited war to our door. No, Ira corrected. Lyra invited judgment. There's a difference. Cale moved to stand beside Lyra, his hand finding her shoulder. Are you ready for this? Once they come, there's no going back. I've been ready, Lyra said. They made me small for 23 years. It's time they see what they created. They came 5 days later. The Nightshade Pack arrived in force, at least 20 wolves, all warriors, all battle-trained. Theron led them in his alpha form, massive and dark as night, with Celeste at his right flank. They stopped at the edge of the neutral territory, unwilling to cross without permission. The borders are respected at least, Nix muttered, watching from the compound walls. That's something. Lyra stood at the main gate, her guard fanned out behind her. She was in human form, dressed in the leather armor they'd crafted for her, dark and practical, with silver accents that matched her eyes. Her hair was braided back, and she wore a cloak that had belonged to the previous matriarch, according to Silverwatch records. It was ancient, beautiful, and it marked her status clearly. Theron shifted to human form, his expression carefully controlled. Up close, Lyra could read his scent now. Beneath the forest and embers, there was unease, confusion, and something that might have been regret. Lyra Ashwood, he said, his voice carrying across the distance. Or should I say, matriarch. My scout brought interesting news. Then you know why you're here, Lyra replied. You rejected me, cast me out to die, and thought nothing more of it. But I didn't die. And now, Alpha King, you're standing on my territory. This is neutral land, Celeste interjected, her beautiful face twisted in a sneer. You can't claim. I can claim anything I'm strong enough to hold, Lyra interrupted, her voice sharp. Isn't that the law you've all lived by? Power determines territory. Dominance determines rule. Well. She took a step forward. I'm here. Come test my dominance if you dare. Theron raised a hand, stopping Celeste from lunging forward. I didn't come to fight. I came to understand. How is this possible? You were an Omega. Weak. You couldn't even shift fully. I was bound, Lyra said. My power was magically suppressed when I was an infant. Your rejection shattered that binding. So, in a way, Theron, I should thank you. Your cruelty set me free. She saw the moment understanding hit him, saw his eyes widen fractionally. Bound? By whom? Questions you should have asked before destroying our mate bond, Lyra said. But that's done. What matters now is this: you humiliated me before the pack. You cast me out to die. You chose ambition over destiny. And now, you'll answer for it. I'm the Alpha King, Theron snarled, his control slipping. I answer to no one, least of all a rejected Omega. Then show me, Lyra said softly. Show me your strength, Alpha King. Challenge me. Let's see if the moon goddess agrees with your choices. Celeste didn't wait for permission. She shifted mid-leap, her wolf form large and russet red, fangs bared, aimed directly at Lyra's throat. It was fast, well executed, the strike of a trained warrior. Lyra sidestepped. That's all she did, a single fluid motion, and Celeste sailed past her. Before the enforcer could recover, Lyra had shifted partially, just her arm, just enough to extend claws like silver knives. She caught Celeste by the scruff, lifted her, and slammed her into the ground with enough force to crack stone. Celeste didn't get up. The Nightshade warriors stared in shock. One hit. One overwhelming move. Their lead enforcer was unconscious, possibly concussed, and Lyra hadn't even broken a sweat. Anyone else? Lyra asked, her voice calm. That's when the Silverwatch revealed themselves. As one, all 10 guards shifted. Not into normal wolves. Not even into large pack wolves. They transformed into something out of legend, dire wolves, each one massive, each one radiating ancient power. Their silver eyes glowed in the fading light, and their collective presence was overwhelming. The Nightshade warriors fell back, their dominance displays forgotten in the face of true predators. I am Lyra Ashwood, the matriarch, Lyra said, her voice carrying command that made even Theron lower his head. And this is the Silverwatch, my sworn guard. You came here expecting to find a weak Omega playing at power. Instead, you found something your pack has forgotten. That strength without honor is just cruelty, that dominance without justice is just tyranny. She walked toward Theron, watching him struggle between instinct to submit and pride demanding he stand tall. You rejected me to avoid shame. But you've brought worse upon yourself, Alpha King. Your people whisper. Your elders question. And now, your rejected mate stands before you with power you can't comprehend. What do you want? Theron growled. Revenge? To destroy Nightshade Pack? I want justice, Lyra said. I want every Omega in your pack to be valued, not discarded. I want your laws changed to protect the weak, not just elevate the strong. And I want you. She leaned close. I want you to live with the knowledge of what you threw away. No death. No exile. Just the eternal understanding that you had destiny in your hands and chose ambition instead. Mercy? Celeste spat, having regained consciousness enough to speak from where she lay. You're giving us mercy? Mercy tempered with consequences, Lyra corrected. She raised her voice, addressing all the Nightshade wolves. Your pack stands at a crossroads. You can continue following leaders who value power over righteousness, who would discard fated mates and cast out the vulnerable. Or you can choose differently. What are you proposing? One of the older warriors asked. A new law, Lyra said. The Matriarch's Law. It will govern all packs in these territories. 3 core principles. First, Omegas and lower-ranking wolves must be protected, not exploited. Abuse will be met with exile. Second, mate bonds, fated or chosen, will be sacred. Rejections must be justified before a council, not done at whim. Third, strength will be measured not just in dominance but in service to the pack. You can't enforce this, Theron argued, but his voice lacked conviction. I can, Lyra said. Because this territory, all this neutral land you've used for hunting, for passage, for everything, it's mine now. The matriarch has claimed it. Any pack wanting access will follow my laws. Any pack refusing? She let the threat hang. Well, you've seen what 10 dire wolves can do. Imagine if they were motivated to enforce justice. Theron sank to his knees. It wasn't submission, not quite. It was acknowledgement. I made a mistake, he said hoarsely. When the bond snapped, when I saw you. I was afraid. Afraid of appearing weak. Afraid that accepting an Omega mate would undermine my authority. So you chose cruelty over courage, Lyra said. And now you kneel before the very Omega you cast out. The moon goddess has a sense of irony, doesn't she? What would you have me do? Theron asked. Go back to your pack. Strip Celeste of her rank for attacking without your order. Call a council. Present the Matriarch's Law to your pack, and let them vote. If they accept, Nightshade Pack will have my protection and trading rights in the neutral territories. If they refuse, Lyra shrugged. Then they'll struggle without access to these hunting grounds, these resources. The choice is theirs. She stepped back, and Cale moved to her side, his presence steady and supportive. The contrast wasn't lost on anyone, Theron on his knees, defeated and alone, while Lyra stood tall with a chosen mate at her side. You have 1 month, Lyra said. Counsel your pack. Return with your answer. And Theron? She waited until he met her eyes. Thank you. Your cruelty gave me everything. Your rejection was the greatest gift you could have given me. The Nightshade wolves retreated. Celeste had to be carried by 2 warriors, her pride as broken as her body. Theron shifted and ran without looking back, his howl echoing across the territories, a sound of grief and loss that Lyra felt but didn't share. When they were gone, Ira approached. That was incredibly restrained of you. Many would have chosen violence. Violence is easy, Lyra said. Justice is hard. I won't become what they feared by proving them right. She looked at her guard, at these 10 incredible warriors who'd pledged themselves to her. This is just the beginning. Other packs will challenge us. Other alphas will see me as a threat. Let them, Rowan said cheerfully. We've been waiting 300 years for a good fight. Kale took Lyra's hand, threading his fingers through hers. You were magnificent. That's not just my opinion, that's fact. You showed strength and mercy in equal measure. That's the mark of a true leader. I couldn't have done it without all of you, Lyra said honestly. I'm not the matriarch despite being an Omega. I'm the matriarch because I know what it means to be powerless, to be discarded, to be considered worthless. That experience, it taught me what matters. And I won't forget. Ever. They stood together on the walls as night fell, watching the stars emerge. Somewhere distant, Lyra could hear howls from various packs, could sense the ripples of change beginning to spread. Word would travel fast, the rejected Omega who'd become something legendary, the matriarch who challenged an Alpha King and won without bloodshed. What do you think? Lyra asked Kale quietly. Do you think they'll accept the new laws? Some will, Kale said. Some won't. But you've planted a seed. Given wolves like you, wolves who've suffered under cruel hierarchies, you've given them hope. That's worth more than any battle victory. Lyra leaned against him, letting his warmth and solid presence ground her. This was her pack now. Her family. Not bound by blood or forced by fate, but chosen deliberately, earned through struggle and trust. I love you, she said suddenly, the words escaping before she could second-guess them. Kale stilled, then turned to face her fully. His pale silver eyes held hers with an intensity that stole her breath. I love you too, he said. Not because prophecy says I should. Not because you're the matriarch. Because you're Lyra. Because you're fierce and kind and strong in all the ways that matter. He cupped her face gently. May I kiss you? Please, Lyra breathed. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, then deepening into something that felt like coming home. When they broke apart, Lyra was smiling, and the silver watch was politely pretending not to watch from below. So, Rowan called up, completely destroying the pretense. Are we planning a mating ceremony? Because Ember bets it'll be within 3 months, and I said 6, and we've got money on this. Rowan. Ira hissed. Boundaries. But Lyra was laughing, and Kale was grinning, and for the first time in her entire life, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. 3 months, Lyra called down. Ember wins. We'll have the ceremony under the full moon. The guard cheered. Plans were already being made, celebrations discussed. And through it all, Lyra felt her wolf settle, content and powerful and finally free. 3 weeks later, messengers arrived from 12 different packs. 8 had accepted the matriarch's law without reservation. 3 wanted to negotiate terms. 1, an aggressive pack from the mountains, had sent a rejection along with a declaration of war. Well, Nick said, reading the hostile message. That was inevitable. We'll deal with them, Thane said calmly. Together. Nightshade Pack's response came last. Theron himself delivered it, arriving alone at the border, waiting respectfully for permission to enter. Lyra granted it, meeting him in the compound's main hall. He looked different. Older, maybe. Humbled definitely. The arrogance that had defined him was gone, replaced by something that might have been wisdom earned through suffering. The pack voted, Theron said without preamble. Overwhelmingly in favor of your laws. The elders formally apologize for how you were treated. Several Omegas have come forward with stories of abuse that were previously ignored. We're changing. Slowly, but changing. And Celeste? Lyra asked. Exiled, Theron said flatly. She refused to accept the new laws, called them weakness. She left voluntarily before she could be forced out. He paused. My parents asked me to give you this. He held out a sealed letter. Lyra took it, recognizing her mother's handwriting on the envelope. I won't read it now, Lyra said. But thank you for bringing it. There's something else, Theron said. A confession I need to make. When I rejected you, part of me knew it was wrong. I felt it. But I was surrounded by advisors telling me that accepting an Omega would make me look weak, that the pack would lose respect, that I needed a warrior queen, not. He gestured helplessly. I let fear guide me. And I'm sorry. Truly, genuinely sorry. Lyra studied him. Sincerity was written in every line of his body, clear in his scent. This wasn't manipulation. This was regret. I accept your apology, Lyra said. But understand, Theron, we can never be what we might have been. That bond is gone. The possibility is dead. I know, Theron said. I see you with Commander Kale. I see the way he looks at you, the way you shine around him. That's how it should have been with us, but I destroyed it before it could begin. He straightened. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for the chance to prove Nightshade Pack can be better. That I can be better. Then prove it, Lyra said. Lead your pack with honor. Protect the vulnerable. Embody the laws you've accepted. That's all I ask. After Theron left, Lyra opened her mother's letter. It was long, painful, full of explanations and apologies. Her parents had bound her power out of fear that she'd be stolen by those who'd exploit a powerful Omega child, fear that she'd be killed by those threatened by her potential. They'd thought they were protecting her. They'd been wrong. But they'd acted from love, however misguided. Lyra set the letter aside. Forgiveness would come, eventually. But it would be earned, not freely given. That was her right. And so Lyra Ashwood's journey from discarded Omega to legendary matriarch reached its first major milestone. She'd faced her rejecter and chosen justice over vengeance. She'd established laws that would protect the powerless and bind the powerful. She'd found her true strength not in dominance, but in the courage to be merciful when she had every right to be cruel. The lesson was clear: true power isn't about making others bow. It's about lifting up those who've been forced to kneel. As the full moon rose on the night of her mating ceremony with Kale, surrounded by the Silver Watch and representatives from packs across the territories, Lyra understood that this was just the beginning. There would be more challenges, more battles, more alphas who thought they could intimidate her back into submission. They would all learn the same lesson Theron had. The Omega they dismissed was dead. The matriarch stood in her place. And she would not bow. Not ever again. What did you think of this story? Did Lyra's transformation resonate with you? Have you ever felt underestimated, only to prove everyone wrong? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your reactions. If you enjoyed this tale of rejection turned triumph, please like this video and share it with friends who love powerful transformation stories. Every share helps us reach more people who need to hear that their circumstances don't define their destiny. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next chapter of the matriarch story. Because this is only the beginning. War is coming, the mountain pack has rejected the new laws, and ancient enemies are stirring. The blood moon rises next month, and with it, secrets that could shatter everything Lyra has built. Will the Silver Watch be enough? Can Lyra's new power withstand what's coming? And what happens when she discovers the real reason her power was bound all those years ago? Thank you for listening to this tale of the Alpha King who humiliated an Omega and awakened something he could never defeat. We'll see you in the next chapter, where the true test of the matriarch begins. Until then, remember, your past doesn't define your future. Your power is yours alone. And sometimes, the cruelest rejection is actually destiny's greatest gift.